Before we start, I would like to ask your help to do two things. First, tell a friend or two who you think might like the show. And second, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The more reviews the show gets, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Thank you, and now on to the show.
They make the trek out to Burning Man for a week and a day. After a lot of work, oh, there's a lot of play. Party, 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 drama, 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 bitch, bitch, bitch. Year after year, they come back to scratch that itch. They all say their lives have been changed. After many years, lives have been rearranged. That change is what this show is all about. You'll see the impact of Burning Man up and out. So sit back, relax, and cancel all your plans. These are the stories about the shadow of the man.
Hello, and welcome to the Shadow of the Man Show. I am your host, Andy. Don't panic, it's that Andy. Today, our guest is Erin Douglas. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, it's funny because like each time I have like a different opening, and for like the whole that Andy, because people ask me, it's like, oh, what's your playa name? I was like, I don't know, I never had a playa name. It's just Andy. When people talk to me, they're like, who are you? And I'd be like, and they're like, oh, you're that Andy. I'm like,
Oh,
eh,
okay, so
eh.
you gave yourself one.
But yeah, but since this is actually episode 42 and your last name is Douglas, I was just kind of like, oh, don't panic, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So yeah, so when did it all begin for you? Like, when was the first time you ever did any kind of Burning Man thing? Like, went to the playa or any regional event?
I've never done a regional
Oh, really?
event, no. I went to Playa the first time in 2017, and I think I'd heard about Burning Man, I guess around 2010, because it was a friend who lived in New York City at the time. And a close friend of mine, we used to run in a really cool run crew together. And she was going for the first time. And so she was telling me about her preparing for this thing, but she didn't really explain too much about it. Um, and I'd never looked it up. And it was also 2010. So I just knew that she was going to this thing. And then once I heard her say it, I just happened to overhear it in other spaces that I was in, randomly, and was just like, oh, that's my friend's going, to that thing. Um, and she was going every year, and I always call her, she's like a very particular, intentional person. So I also knew, like, I don't know what this is, but if she's giving her time and effort towards it, it must be like something. And then in 2017, I had moved back to Maryland, I think. Yeah, I had moved back to Maryland just then, and she just called me up and was like, "You're going to Burning Man." And I was like, "Oh, am I?" I don't know about that. Um, and I was definitely unsure. It wasn't something that was on my bucket list or that I was interested in. But, I trusted her. She had become a very good friend by then. Like I said, I knew that she was intentional about the spaces and the time that, the spaces that she was in, the time that she gave, or things that took her time had to be very valuable. And so I think my knowledge of, or my understanding of who she was as a person, like I fully trusted that she felt like I should be there. I didn't know why, and I still don't know to this day, really. But she felt like I should be there, and she was going to gift me the ticket, and I didn't know how much they cost at that time, but I knew it was like a good, that was like a nice gift. And so I would never say no to her, because she always challenges you in a way that, like, you might give her the side eye, but you know that she's making you a better person in the end,
And the,
like.
the tickets were kind of hard to come by then
And they
too.
were hard to come by, way harder to come by then. So yeah, and she gave me a ticket, and she made it really hard to uh, say no. Like every time I said something, she's like, "Well, I have your tent. I have a bike. We can set you up. Just get, get your food here and your flight and like like nothing else. So I didn't even know Camp Dues existed until I wanted to come back the next year, because she
Yeah.
covered it all. And it was with her camp too. So I knew people because they were her friends that I had met over the years. So
So she made it easy for you.
she made it easy for me, yeah, for
Yeah. I
sure.
was gonna say, like coming from the East Coast, I mean, it just logistically, I know I have friends who like, they're like, oh yeah, they pack up the van, they drive.
Yeah, it's
All this
very,
stuff.
very easy for those West Coasters and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean,
so
most of my campmates were from the East Coast. And if they weren't, they had just moved from the East Coast to the West Coast.
I
But
know that like a couple of like Boston, New York, a couple places they do a container.
yeah,
Did
but I know New York and DC do. They do a container, but I didn't know about the container at that point.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Wow. Well, that was really nice of her. I mean, it
Yeah,
made it very easy. So you just like flew into Reno? Did you like do you
yeah.
rent a car? Did she pick you up or
Flew
something?
into Reno. Her were they married? I don't think they were married at the time. So her husband now, um, he had friends who were coming in from Korea or Japan. I don't know. It was Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And it was their first time also, and I had not met them, and they had like a small RV, and so they agreed to pick me up, and we all went in together as virgins, and so that was fun because I got to know them and they were great and we're all still friends. And yeah, and we have that nice story together as going to Burning Man for our first time and then picking me up from the airport. And so that made it. And they also, because they had gotten there, they picked up my water. We found like a water distribution company. So they were going to get theirs. They picked up mine. So it all just
Yeah.
like worked out. And
So going into this, well, your friend was like, "Okay, I'm going to take care of you. I got your ticket." Like, the interest in your own research. Like what were you, we think you're expecting?
I don't remember doing a ton of research. Maybe I went on the website, she sent me a bunch of spreadsheets that was like, hey, these are like must have and these are the good nice to haves. And like, I went to the store. My dad took me and we went to Costco. We went to this place and that place and everything was laid out. So, but the experience part of it are like visuals. I don't know if I looked a ton, but I did somehow know that or figure that I wouldn't see a ton of Black people or people of color. And
Hmm.
so, although, and that made me nervous, even my friend was Latina, but um, that made me nervous in a different way because I was a solo traveler. I traveled around the world by myself. And at that time, there was not, I was rare. I rarely saw other people who looked like me when I was traveling, which is a lot different now. So it was interesting how I felt different because this environment felt like it was different and it felt extreme. Um, and so I was just like, I don't, what am I going to do with my hair? My friend didn't have hair like mine, and her skin is lighter, so she didn't, like so so I think that was the biggest thing was like, am I gonna see people? I'm probably not, and what do I do? And I don't have anyone to talk to about it until
Yeah.
I found someone. Yeah.
But in all your travels around, like before that, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like it's like, oh, I'm going to this like remote desert.
Right.
Like,
Right. I mean, there were still, places that not a lot of people would at that time have traveled by themselves,
mhm.
like going to Asia for two, like I had never traveled before. That was my first time traveling. Some people won't even go to Mexico by themselves still at this point, but it definitely wasn't a remote desert. And also didn't know what I was going to find out there that felt like was me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Well, at least you knew that you have like a good friend who's looking out for you, right?
yeah, definitely had a good friend. I was just like, what am I going to do out there? Like, I don't do this, I don't do that. I'm not really a partier. So, but it was helpful once I actually, another runner friend, I don't even know how he wound up going to Burning Man. He was a Black guy. I don't know how he found out about it. New Yorker.
Hmm.
And I randomly remembered that he went one year. And
Hmm.
so I reached out to him and his girlfriend at the time. He connected me to her, so that I could get just some insight about hair and what she did and clothes. And, he kind of really helped me just relax a bit. So that was helpful.
Yeah. So, what did it feel like when you got there? I'm sure you got off the plane and you met some these new people and you get an RV and you're like, okay, this is an adventure, and you're driving up the 447 and you're like, oh, it looks pretty remote, and you're on the gate
Yeah.
road and they're like, oh, come on out and roll in the dust. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, by the time was it dark? I'm sure we were in line and when it was light. I remember changing my clothes and my shoes once we got on the dirt road from like my airport clothes and
hmm,
put on, I had old Tims that I hadn't worn in forever, which were like perfect to actually.
hmm,
Um, and I put them on and stepped out there for the first time. And, we had a lot of time in the line. And I remember, yeah, rolling in the dust, not being sure about it, and then getting to camp and just being, trying to take it in, trying to understand what I was looking at. Um, nervous about setting up a tent because I didn't know how to set up a tent. I was very jealous that they were just like gonna sleep in their RV, didn't have to do all that. Um, and yeah, so I think it was the tent was small. It was probably like a two-person tent that you couldn't even stand up in. So it
yeah,
was really, I mean, maybe it was a three-person tent. But um, so I think that was probably a big frustration that year. Trying to stay organized and, learning how your body respond, your mind respond to just like all the different things happening and, forgetting something in your tent when you just tied up your boots and you don't want to take your boots off, but you don't want dust in the tent. And like
hmm,
that drove me crazy. So
yeah,
I would try to be like, okay, let me put a basket where like my lights are here, these things are here by the front door so that if I forget them, I don't have to like,
yeah.
walk across.
I think you
Um,
kind of like learn by doing stuff too. I mean, because people go like, oh, they research and they watch all these YouTube videos and stuff, but it's like it's pretty much like you once you kind of get to you figure out it's like, oh, what routine like is good for me.
yeah, it was good for you because that might like somebody might not care and somebody might just walk into their tent with their dusty shoes on and that's not a problem with that for them.
Yeah.
You learn what becomes triggers for yourself
Hmm.
and then like problem solve around how to fix those. So,
Yeah.
but I would say I still am in my head, but probably less in my head. Um, Overthinker and a little bit, like closed. And so it was a lot, like I couldn't loosen up and it was overwhelming. It was beautiful and also overwhelming and I didn't have real words and I was like, I don't know if I like that. I didn't know how I felt about it. And it likely once I kind of got my groove and felt, in the groove of it, then like we were taking down the camps.
Ah,
Um, so yeah, I don't remember a lot of details from the like my first year, like like
mhm.
my daily things, but I remember just the feeling of like
Yeah.
overwhelm. I think my first night, um, everyone was doing their thing and trying these things, and we walk across playa, and it was like way too intense. And I walk back with another person, and I think I was the only single person in my camp, so everyone was couple. And I got in the bed at like 9:30 on the first night, like, earplugs in, wasn't working. I was just like, what's happening? And
Why does it get quiet around here?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so okay, so you get there, you set up your tent. I mean, so how long before you like wandering around? I mean, did
I
you kind
mean,
of like stick to camp for a
well,
while, or like
no,
what's going to
I
school?
grabbed a bike because they had a bunch of bikes that they had just like brought over the years and then
Hmm.
someone got a new one and so I grab a bike and another friend who was my friend's, like one of her best friends, and my friend's husband were like, we're gonna go ride out to the man in the temple. And it was his first time, but her like 10th time, and he had never come. Um, and so we ride out, and I just can't, like, the bike is just so hard to ride. And like at the time the roads were a lot more like kinder, like they were easy to ride on. They weren't
Better than
bumpy,
this
and they
year.
weren't, yeah, the past few years have been treacherous to me. They were soft, but still some like firmness underneath it. So it wasn't hard to ride. But I was like, why is this so hard? I was athletic, so I was just like, okay, I run all the time. Why? Um, and then like, I was nervous about everyone saying like you might pass out if you don't drink water. It gets hot, you don't know you're sweating. So I was really like, and I take my water pack straw thing and I'm sucking and pulling and nothing is coming out. So now I'm like, I'm gonna pass out because I'm hot and I'm trying to ride this bike and why is it so hard? And my friends were like way in front of me, and I'm like standing up, pedaling, and we get to, I don't remember which one we got to first. And then I don't ride bikes I know how to ride a bike, but I don't ride bikes. So I had this epiphany to go and check the tire and realize my tire was like completely, like it was flat. It never dawned on me. So I had rode out, 10 minutes one way, 10 minutes, whatever amount of time it took to ride. It's just not a short period of time. You're riding a good amount of distance. And yeah, I was on a flat, but I was in it by then, so I had to just keep going until so they were like, "We're gonna go to center camp and we're gonna go here." And
But
I
did you
rode
just
on
like
a
take
flat the
off
whole
and was like,
time.
hey, where's Erin? I don't like,
So I think that was a funny thing, and I was just like, "Oh, okay." That made me just be like, "Okay, I understand playa, like the challenges that it brings with, and how you
hmm
handle them, and all the things. It's always going to challenge you. So that was kind
yeah.
of my first, challenge, I guess.
So are you, I always kind of think about like burners as like either like daytime people or like nighttime people. Are you like a more of a,
Hmm.
sounds to me like more, a little
I
more of a
would say
daytime
a
person?
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say day. I mean, I stay out at night, but I on the norm, I would get sleep at nighttime at night.
The
Hmm.
older
So,
that I've gotten, the more I've come to really value getting a good night's sleep.
yeah. I
It's
think
funny
mine
'cause,
has been that way. I mean, I'll stay out sometimes, but
uh,
most of the time I'm getting a few hours.
yeah. So yeah, so your first year maybe a little bit overwhelming at first, right? But then by the end you're loving it. So then how'd you feel at the end? Were you just like,
Um,
"Hmm, do this again?" Like,
No, I wouldn't say I was loving it. I knew that there were some interesting like things that I didn't really understand, and I think also having the knowledge of travel and experiences made me realize like I don't know how I feel about this, but I do know that stepping into new things have has always opened up something for me.
mhm.
Whether that's people, skill sets, mind expansion, or whatever. So I did know that, like, although I couldn't put my finger on it and I couldn't tell how much I liked it or not, or if I would go back, that I knew that, okay, well, I know it's a unique space and it's different than anything that I've experienced. And, any kind of travel and experience is, I think, beneficial, good thing. So that's all I had, like that's just as much as I had for it. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that thing. I don't know what that was. Um, and but and the decompression was real. Like I didn't want to answer my phone. I really didn't know. I didn't believe that it was a thing. And then like, my phone would ring and I would just look at it and be like, no. Especially if there was if it was someone who had just gone to Burning Man, then it was a little bit more appealing to answer the phone. But because I didn't have the word for what I had experienced, and I knew that's what they were going to ask me, and I was still trying to process everything, and so I didn't
You
have
feeling
any
like,
interest in like talking to anybody who hadn't
yeah.
gone.
Did you feel kind of like a
Uh,
disconnect when you came back?
A little bit. Yeah, I guess I was just like in my head about, what it was and how I felt about it and trying to get the words to explain it. Um, so yeah, that was how I felt, which, I honestly I really appreciate that story because I've also interviewed a lot of people and I think people can find some solace in my story where I wasn't someone who was jumping right into it or who was like, this is home or
Hmm.
always wanted to go and still, find myself going 7 years later and have done so much within the community. So when people say it's not my thing, which everyone says, or people say, I'm not sure, then, I share my story because it wasn't something that I was super excited about or that I, felt excited about afterwards. It was like I
Yeah.
don't, so
So
yeah.
was it the friends that you made or your friend, or did they kind of pull you into it, or is it that you kind of like went towards?
You mean after
Yeah.
or
Like in terms of
well,
like going back to Burning Man, like.
no, there was two things I did start to process it and think of some things that happened there and you start to reflect on how those things impact you in life and I started to say, well, if I do go back, then these are the things that I would do differently. If I do go back, then I'm going to do this instead, or I'm not going to do that instead, or I'm going to go out on my own, or so there were things where I'm like, oh, why do I do that? Next time, I'm going to focus on this. So that was one thing I started to say. And then, you know, I I started posting, my photography on my Instagram page, and that is when I got a lot of, um, inquiries about what Burning Man was, and not only that, but they didn't know that Black people were out there. And it wasn't that my photos all had people of color in them; they were diverse, but it was me that they had tangible access to that they could ask. And so after many of the same messages and DMs and that all said the same thing, then the idea of the Black Burner Project, which I didn't have the name for, started to like come into place. Um, and so that's really what took me back the next year.
Oh, okay. So the Black Burner Project was born like between your first and second years.
hmm Yeah, yep. It
Wow.
was born. Like I said, I was still trying to figure out how I felt about did know was that with the influx of people who were reaching out to me, all feeling like it wasn't a safe space for them, or feeling like they weren't invited, or they weren't allowed, or that we weren't, we don't do those things, that shouldn't be the reason why people decide not to go.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know how I feel about it, but that shouldn't be why you're not going, especially for those who are like, I've known about it for 10 years, or I've known about it for 20 years, and I've known about it and I've always put it in my back pocket because I didn't think we were there, never saw anyone. I didn't think we were invited. I thought it was invite only. Like I didn't know if it was safe. And so, I mean, tons and tons of it. And there is a gentleman, I don't know his name, and I don't know if I've always tried to go back and find his message to me, but he DM'd me and told me he had known about it for way longer than I had known about it. And he said he never went because of all those things.
Hmm.
And I was just like, man, I was like, I really don't know how I feel about it still, but like, who would he be had he had gone? Like, he's someone who actually wanted to go.
Hmm.
What would have expanded? Who would he know? Where would he be now? What would have opened? Like all those things that I know happen in general with travel, but like obviously this unique place, like
Hmm.
what would have happened? And to me, that was really sad that those were the reasons why he didn't experience that and didn't get that opportunity for himself. And so that was kind of the moment where the concept of it started to come into play, but the moment where I knew I had to do it was like after his message. And so I just started to, like, well, I don't know I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want it to be bigger than my Instagram page, which means you have to put in a proposal for media. Um, And I knew that, uh, I was just like, if they say yes, the proposal is pretty extensive. And then if I can get a ticket and, if those work out, then I'll go back. And so I started to work on the concept and the proposal and what it meant to me and stuff. And they said yes to it. And so that's what took me back my second year.
Yeah. So, like, when you were when people were like asking you questions and you were thinking about all this, like, were there other resources that you'd found, like other like forums or groups of people who are already like talking about these questions? Or
No, I mean, they were looking, they were literally looking for someone who looked like them to tell them it was okay. Like that was like people would say, "Is it okay? Will I be okay?"
oh,
And I understood it, and I understood why I had to go through the feeling myself, even though I had experienced travel. Like that's why I was so confused. I was like, experience, I travel by myself. I'm never, I never see other people who look like me, but I was having this experience, feeling nervous and feeling, you know, but I had to feel that in order to relate to the people who were gonna one day reach out to me.
mhm.
And I just gave them my perspective and I think that's all they really needed.
Yeah. Well, I think the first step in any kind of like community organizing, like it's like starting a conversation, right? That's why
Yeah,
it's like when 2017, 2018, it's like there's not, I mean, there's not even like some like Reddit or some sort of like chat group or something
and
like
maybe
anymore.
there was,
Yeah.
but I think,
Wow.
there wasn't any visual identity out there.
Hmm.
One. And so it's likely that if there was a Reddit, that there was likely weren't people of color.
Hmm.
And like there was more people out there than I expected, but it was still a small group. And yeah, having the visual aspect and the storytelling, even though I was just telling a general, you know, environmental people I met and my camp mates, um, allow for a different perspective and trust. And, people just asked questions and I just, answered as much as I could and was
Yeah.
honest with them. But
Yeah.
as also I could relate and could share how I felt going in and, all of those things. So
I think that's where it all
that,
starts. Yeah, it's very
Mhm.
powerful. So what, 2018, you went back with the Black Burner project or
I didn't have a name but yet.
oh.
So it was just me. That it's only been, yeah. It's just been me. I went back with the idea and the knowing of okay, I'm gonna take photos of people and I don't know how I'm gonna do it and where am I gonna see people. And so I usually take a few days before I take my camera out, um, because I know it's such a intimate, although vast space. It's like
Hmm.
special and everything. And yeah, and I took my camera out, and it just so happened that I met some guys down the street, and there were like three black gentlemen who I met. And so they were like some of the first ones. Hank Willis Thomas was taking his Afro pick out there. And so I was really eager about going out and taking photos of that. So actually, they were the first ones I took photos of him and his team, once I found the Afro pick. And then I would just walk up to someone and just be like, "Hey, I'm taking photo," really nervous and scared, and tell them what I was doing and ask if they would be okay with me taking their portrait. And then I would get their information and tell them I would reach out to interview them later. And that's kind of how it went. And I was lucky to bump into so many people. Maybe in my years of doing it now, there's been like one or two people who have said no, but like, um,
Yeah.
that's nothing. I've photographed hundreds of people at this point. So yeah, that was kind of how it went. And I got, more comfortable as, the days went on. And
Hmm.
the group photo, that was the first year of the big group photo. That happened. I remember riding my bike and I said, "Oh my gosh, I want to do a group photo." And then I completely just disregarded it because I was like, that can't happen. Like, who's gonna come? You know, how
Ah,
am I gonna tell people? Who's gonna remember by the time they get two blocks, a block down the street? You
yeah.
know, like
You just
who's
like
gonna remember that?
make like
So
a date and time, right? You know, you're just like, ah,
yeah,
whoever shows up, right? I mean,
but
but then
but to
playa
me, to
time.
me, in my head, I'm like, no one is. It's like there was no, text reminders, and I I just assumed like, nah, I don't think. But I was at my camp happy hour, and I don't even know what made me mention it to a group of people who I had just met, um, about this idea for a group photo. And I forget his name, Javon or somebody who I just met was like, do it. And I was like, oh, and he was like, you should totally do it. Like, we'll come and I was like, will you tell people? He's like, we'll tell people, we'll spread the word and just come up with a date, time, location. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay. And so Friday, I think I said the man, Friday the man at 6. And so they were like, okay. And so, you know, just left with that and went around, and as I took photos of people I did say like, hey, I'm doing a group photo, um come. And that, I remember leaving my camp that, I don't know, 5 o'clock, and being really nervous that no one was going to show up, and telling myself like, Erin, if 5 people come or 3 people come, like that's success. You like be
exactly.
proud of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. That's all it works.
And yeah. And even to the point where I saw 2 people walking and took photos of them and convinced them not to come because I didn't think anybody was going to go. I was like, you guys look like you're on your way somewhere. Like you have a destination. Like I'm doing this thing, but it's probably not going to be anybody there. So, keep doing what you're doing. Like
Uh,
a few yards away, there were like 25 people waiting. And I was like, what?
oh,
Um, and someone was like, "Oh, let me go see if there's anybody else at the temple." And so people went and grabbed people, and the same guy who said, who was encouraging was in film, and so he helped me like we were like figuring out the lighting, which direction, what the formation I wanted it in. Um, and I think about 35 people came with a few people who came afterwards, and that was the birthing of it. And I
wow.
think it was special to watch everyone interact afterwards because people were so like, they didn't know each other. And it was obviously a special moment for them,
Yeah,
way
yeah,
more special than I even knew. And so I captured that. And that was really when I was like, oh, it has to be this way every time. Like
yeah.
I have to just come on Playa, not tell anybody where it's going to be. And it's going to be through word of mouth because it's really special that how that all came together, and how people made it a priority for Friday at 6, for Friday,
Mhm.
several days after they possibly found out. And so that's when I was like, I'm doing this again, word of mouth only, and that's what's been.
Yeah. No, that's really
Hmm.
good. Like do it at the end of the week because if you're just like, we're gonna do it on Monday at like 8
Hmm.
in the
Oh
morning,
yeah,
you're
no one's
like,
there, one,
no one's
but
gonna
yeah.
be there, right? But yeah, but no, it's funny because like that's just kind of how like burner like organizing like works. You know, it's just like
Hmm.
just throw something out in the wind. I mean, when I started the Hawaii regional group here, it's like we'd be like, oh, we're gonna do this like this camping trip on this beach, and I would be there by myself for like the first like 4 hours, and I was like, well, at least I'm having a good time. you know,
Right.
and if like even one person showed up, I'd just be like, well, that's a success. There you go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Like sometimes we like self sabotage ourselves. It's like, oh no, no one's gonna show up. Don't go. But it's just, I don't know. It's sort of like the nature of brain just to just throw it out there. Just like whatever
Mm.
happens, it happens.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, like things are gonna happen that you don't expect, right?
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
Mhm. So that
Now,
was,
I don't know how I would have felt if 3 people, like was telling myself that because I knew how I was going to feel. But I wish I had, like, the way my brain and my heart are, like, it just doesn't, it's not that easy for me to let it go, or in my perfectionism, probably. And it's also me putting myself out there in a way that I hadn't before. So
Mhm.
this was, you know, not just a gathering, it was my art, it was my vision, it was like all these things and at once that I was just trying to be, being vulnerable and actually putting out there. And so I wanted them, I was hopeful that it would be more than what I might have thought it would be. And I definitely didn't think there would be 35 people.
Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, it was really beautiful to witness that first one.
So it exceeded your expectations. Did it
Oh yeah.
light? So it sounds to me like, lit a fire.
It did. It did. Yeah.
So how did
Um,
you grow from there? What you think?
yeah, I mean, when I got back and, I wasn't even sure if I captured anything that I was gonna like. I was like, who knows what these are gonna look like? And, I was able to I was happy with a good amount of the photos that I took and um, I was like, well, I guess I have to make an Instagram page and what is the name gonna be? And so I went through that whole process and I'm not really great all the time with coming up with the name of something, That's like I can have all the context and everything, but the name is what like keeps me back. But so I just thought of something quickly before I did overthink it too much. And
That's the best way to do it.
and then posted it. And it went through the year of editing and interviewing people and, talking to more people who would reach out. So it definitely started to take up a lot of time, but I was enjoying it. And so the next year, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go back and do the same thing, I guess. And I didn't come up with the where I was going to do the group photo until I got on Playa again. And I was like, I'm never going to share it on social media or beforehand. Because also it also has to do with like I want to get a feeling about where it's going to be. So sometimes it's maybe a certain art piece, or sometimes it's because the man is the easiest, and it's just like how I feel. Um, and so I didn't, I realized that things had got taken a turn when a lot of people were coming to, was it that year? Yeah, 2019. A lot of people were coming to me to find me. And so I spent a lot of time in my camp because I almost like couldn't leave. People
Oh,
were coming to find me. People were like, I've been like, you've been so inspirational, or this means this much to me. And they were really pouring a lot into me. And it was hard. It was actually really hard for me. Um, a good handful of photos were in front of my camp, and I didn't enjoy that. I was really annoyed by it because I liked going out and finding people and being in random parts, but it didn't make any sense not to take photos of all the people who were coming to me. So I would just grab them and be like, hey, let's, grab a quick photo. And so that's when I was just like, okay, like this is different, to the point where my campmates were like, she's over there. Like every minute she'd be like, she's over there. And I'm like, what is going on? Uh, and then when I hear more people tell me about the group photo, then I was like, oh, well, obviously there's going to be more than 35 people because people didn't know who I was, So either you knew and you knew of me and you came to find me in my camp, and then that was the first time you saw me, or you just came up to me and you had no clue that I was the person that was throwing it. And so a lot of times my friends would be like, "Oh, she's doing it." And so I had I had put a lot of time and thought into like, okay, well, I had these like inspo boards and like beforehand and like all these things that kind of get me inspired around it. And the thought of like, okay, there might be 60, 70. How am I going to communicate to them? How am I going to direct them? How am I going to make it organized? Um, and to be able to like take a snap. My voice is low, like all these things. And I think that year I said the man, at probably the same time-ish, six. And I remember there was I think it was a face with books inside. It was something with books. And I was sitting and they had benches around it. And I was sitting on it and I was so stressed because I was like, oh gosh, how am I going to direct people? And I was using the little like dry sand, like little pebbles to like put places and make little formations like, okay, I can use these words to like direct people. And this guy was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a little stressed and nervous." And, I told him, and he's like, "Well," he's like, "You're going to be okay." And he's like, "It's not going to work out how you want it to." He's like, "But it's going to work out." And I was like, "Thank you." You know? And
That's
it
just in general for
literally
just about anything on the
pretty
playa.
pretty much anything. But again, this is something that means a lot and it's my vision and I want it to, it's like building a camp and nothing works, like having the vision and like you don't have the parts, like you go out there to make it how you envisioned it. And so, but I wasn't expecting the number of people that were there. So when I got there were hundreds of people
Hundreds?
and hundreds
Wow.
of people. And I was like,
You're
oh
scared?
gosh. Yeah, I mean, like someone had a bullhorn, and I was like, like follow that person. And had my friend Ray wave her hand, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I said, follow her. And I was I kind of run in front, and as the whole crowd was behind me, and I was like, okay, like what am I gonna do? And then I turn around, and everyone just at the same time just like dropped into this formation. And then I was like, oh shit, like this is not what I wanted, but this is so perfect. And I just like, great. And I said a few things and then like, I was like moving like bikes out the way and I had gotten my campmate to help me. There's bikes everywhere and all these other people who were not people of color were like in the way and the shadows were in the way and their bikes were in the way. And I was like moving them with my camera and yelled a few things to the group to encourage them and then took the shot. And so the shot from 2019 is literally everyone just getting down without any instructions, and that's the shot I took.
Yeah.
It was it was like such a energy, so many more people. I don't know, maybe there was 300 more plus 400 people there that year. Um,
So after you took the photo, was like the crowd just kind of like, okay, what's next?
I mean, it was a moment, it was the same thing that happened the first time,
Uh,
everyone connecting and everything. Like I said, people see me, but they also still didn't see me. I'm like this little person. And that's what I did. I had asked another friend who was in a camp if they could host something afterwards. That's what I had done. And so I did say on the speakerphone, like XYZ camp, because I remember the first year that um, people were interested in connecting deeper because they had just met and just had this moment. And so yeah, that was they had like something and people were playing the African drums and they had some food and yeah, so that was something that people could go to.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think you did it right. You started small,
So start small.
right? And then
Had
there's
little
just like,
expectations.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, it also, it's like, I mean, whatever you plan for, it's just like the playa will make something else happen, and it's just kind of organic and it's sort of natural and just sort of like one thing leads to another. And then, I mean, I'm surprised that, that people weren't like, speech, speech, speech.
Yeah,
Like,
the
what do I say?
third year, I think that's when that happened. I did say a little at the beginning for the second year, and then the third year, um, that's when my let's see, third year was 2022 because COVID happened. So
Hmm.
the second group photo was 2019, and then the
22.
world changed.
Yeah.
But I still did a lot around Black Burner Project during that gap because so much was happening
Yeah.
around race and all these things. So
Yeah.
I was extra busy actually with it. And a lot of camps were reaching out, a lot of camp leads were reaching out, the org was reaching out, like everybody, um, wanting my insight, wanting my input, wanting my advice. And then the opportunity or the idea to take art. I don't even know where it came from, but it came, and I uh, started the process of taking art. Um, and so fast forward, 2022 was at my art piece, and that's also when I reached out to Robot Heart, being like, okay, I know this is a pretty substantial art piece, and people were really excited about it. And also, the crowd is getting bigger. I'm going to need some elevation. And so maybe one of these art cars can show up for me, and that will
Mm.
be like my ladder. And I had luckily connected with someone. I think maybe I interviewed him. I don't remember. And yeah, they were open to it. And so that was the first year that we kind of planned something more. And so they showed up, and I was just like, you got to show up with no music on, and you got to show up this way. And then like play, then like have a DJ and play, like we'll have a party after. And that's kind of how that started. Um,
So you said
and there was,
22, you brought your first art piece. What did you bring?
oh, they were two 30-foot portrait structures that you could climb. And one was a man, one was female cooking, and one had audio that you could listen to, and the other one you could climb all the way up to the top. Uh, and it was a beast to bring to fruition.
I was gonna
I
say
know. I didn't know
230.
what I was
I
doing.
remember seeing the pictures of that, and I was just like, yeah. I mean, especially coming back from the East Coast and the logistics, and like, I mean,
Yeah,
you have to have like a whole camp and a team of people, and
yeah. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and no one told me, but luckily I had done so much work already within the community just by like everything I did with Black Burner Project, that I was gaining a lot of access to people, and people who were just willing and open to like having a
Mhm.
conversation or reaching out to me and just saying what they felt about the project. And so, I don't think that if I hadn't had done Black Burner Project and I just showed up wanting to do the art piece, it would have been a different experience for me. Um, so I was lucky in that sense, but I had also that was 5 years of intense work that
Mhm.
I had been put in, and but I think it showed trust within the community. And so all I wouldn't say fundraising was easy at all. Um, I got a lot more support because of that, and the trust and just the mission behind the piece. Um, and then I just started to reach out to people that I had met, throughout the years, that I was like, oh, he does this, and oh, he does that. And oh, like, let me see if they'd be interested in this idea. And all I knew is that I needed the photos to be forward facing. Like I didn't want them inside anything, that you had to find them, and that they had to be big because I wanted people to look up to him. And I wanted us as Black people portraits to take up space, and a space that, we haven't been able to yet. And so those were the things that I wouldn't back down on. So, we had a lot of team meetings. There was a lot of discussions around, plan Bs and this. And I was like, I just need y'all to help me figure out how to make them 30 feet. And,
Yeah.
I would say um, many days where I cried, and many days where I called, a mentor that I was lucky enough to have, who had taken art out there, and, was able to get support from them in that way. Um, but I was extremely blessed to have the team that I did. It was really important for me to have predominantly Black team, or people of color, you know, but it needed to be diverse. And so everyone from everywhere was on there, architects, engineers. I mean, I didn't even know to sometime later that I needed like, an electrical person. I was like, an electrical person, like, and like leading a team for the first time like that I hadn't done. And, you're leading, but this is your thing, you're dealing with volunteers. And so
Oh yeah.
you're like the manager of 20 departments at the end of the day, and if there's no one there to do it, then you're doing it. So I learned a lot. And it was a extremely hot and dusty year, but somehow the plot has been on my side in so many ways, like every year. And so we got it up in time. It was a huge, huge success. I got so much amazing like stories from it. Um, and there was no dust storm during the group photo, which I'm like, as many dust storms as there were, like anything could have happened. It's like clear as day, group photo then. Um, so yeah, it was a very like mind-blowing experience. It took me a really long time to recover from and come down from and yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were talking before, like for me, like I had like a big like 13-year gap. So my first year
Mhm,
back was 2024, but
mhm,
just seeing the stuff that was publicized and on the website, uh, definitely your artwork was quite prominent because like when you just described it, and I was just like, I wasn't even there, but it's like, oh, I
mhm.
know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So did this kind of also morph into like a whole camp too, or
Did not. That was one thing I was like, I'm not doing a camp. Um, no, so I was lucky enough again to, meet people or be connected to people who really, really wanted to support me. Um, and that also meant supporting my team that I was creating and building. And so there were two camps that came together that acted as our art support camp.
mm-hmm,
And so my team, pretty much most of the team camped to get together within those established camps. And they were very generous. I mean, they provided so much. I mean, even before we got to Playa, there were so many things that they helped us with. But there was food and they helped us, brought food to us during build and it was a nice camp, so we had showers and
mm-hmm.
it was a nice camp to be a part of for such an intense, year for me. So, in terms of like just access to stuff, but it had and great food and warm showers, so that was
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
So yeah, it wasn't a camp. A lot of people did think it was, they reach out and think it's a camp, but I'm being pulled into so many directions already mentally that I don't want it. I don't want to camp. And I know that it's a lot of responsibility. And even if I just hand it over to someone else, it would still be under my name and under, like there have to be standards. And I
yeah.
don't want to have to add
Well,
additional.
I think one of the common mistakes that people make with Burning Man is just they just go like bigger, 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 and then just bust. Right.
Hmm.
So it's what you start as just like, oh, a group photo, like 25 people, and then now it's hundreds of people. And now it's like, we're doing 30-foot tall sculpture, like we're going to have a camp and we're going to have a village of 300 people. We're going to have this art
Yeah, no,
cart. And it's
thank
like,
you.
whoa, 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 whoa. Like, it's like focus on, it's like what we do well and what people like and they come back for. Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and to me, I see, Black Burner Project as a separate project from the installations, and so mentally, and even about three kind of angles when I'm out there,
Hmm.
um, and goals and missions and like mindset. So I'm just like, okay, this is what I gotta do daily, and then the art piece, and then like the group photo, I gotta make sure that this is happening and that's happening. Um, and so I did realize how much capacity it all took.
Hmm.
And, I wasn't really having a burn. And my mind, the group photo, which was usually on a Thursday.
Hmm.
And so for that year, I had Friday and Saturday, and then like we were taking down the art piece. So that was like the only time where I didn't have to think about anything specifically was Friday.
Hmm.
Um, and then making sure I'm gathering the folks and getting organized to like take the art piece down and the logistic side of that. Yeah.
Hmm. So the last couple of years, 23, 24, 25. I mean, it's pretty much what was that like? Or did you guys do anything new or different, or it's pretty much
So
same?
23, I took off.
Good
I
year.
st Yeah, it was a good decision. Um, And so right, so I took off, I was still heavily, posting and interviewing people and, all of that stuff. And a lot, like you said, a lot of it also had to do with I also started helping people get to Playa, like getting them access to tickets and, spreadsheets of people, and it was a lot. And so I took off from Burning Man, but still actively doing all those things when I,
Mhm.
wasn't going, but I was still getting people tickets and all the things. And then 24, I said I wouldn't take an art piece, and then I felt like 22 wasn't complete because there were supposed to be three. And I was like, I just need to get the third one out there. And we technically had the piece, we just didn't finish it. And so I was like, he needs to get out there. And so I started the process of like what a 2.0 version would be. Um, and it was big. I had this mission of like internal healing space, and it was really about a journey. So using, the senses as elements of light and sound and all this stuff. Um, and I think it was April or so where, fundraising wasn't going as well. And I had to give myself a deadline on, what I was going to do. And so I had a date, and I told my team that, I would let them know. And so I was like, I can't do it, have to pivot. And um, I was always going to bring barbershops. The idea for a barbershop chair, no, I was always going to bring barbershop chairs. I don't know where it came from. It came to me years ago. And I remember asking a friend, like, hey, can you help me find barbershop chairs? And never happened, but it was just like in the air. And so for that year, I was still gonna find them, and I was just gonna put them either inside the piece or at camp. I really had no, like, I was like, maybe y'all can like have a, some session around them at some point, but there was no real concept around them, but I just wanted to have them. And, as I started to say, like, we can't, like, this is gonna have to pivot. I was like, maybe we just build out around the barbershop chairs. And I was like, you know, it still has the intimacy. Like I can make it about the intimacy and the healing and the vulnerability that I wanted in the big space, but it would actually be intimate. So the same concept and mission. So it was easier for me to give up the big piece idea because the mission was still the same, and I was still going to be able to gift that vision to people. And so that's how the barbershop, came about. And it was also a tribute to my brother who had gone through his, been going through his own mental health journey. And I was, his caretaker, and just understanding the need for safe spaces for men, and especially Black men,
Mhm.
um, for healing and for vulnerability and for support. That's really where that idea came from. And so that's what started. So we had to flip everything around, and everything changed from where I was going to build to, like everything changed. So it wasn't necessarily that the costs were different, because some things that were going to be in kind were now not in kind because it didn't
Mhm.
make sense for me to, um, so yeah, I mean, to be able to like have a team who was supportive with it and was able to help me just turn it around and, redesign everything, redo everything, um, with a limited amount of time, very limited. So
Wow. So it's 24. And did you go back with 25 or this year?
yeah, but that was very last minute, and it was a secret. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to know. I was just going to go out there for myself, because I hadn't been out there for myself since my first year.
It's
And that,
funny because
I
like
mean, it counts, but,
yeah, no, I know a number of people who like work for Burning Man, volunteered, and they work hard, and they drive themselves into the ground, and they volunteer, and they do all these things, and then they come to a certain point where they're just like, this year I'm going to Burning Man.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
maybe next year I'll do something else, but like this year I
mhm,
just need 1 year. Yeah,
yeah. So that was me, and it was last minute, and it was a lot of things happened where my time was cut really short, but, um,
We got to go with the flow. I mean, I think that's what how Burning Man kind of teaches us. It's not like the well planned and executed festival.
No, for sure, for sure. It's definitely not, but there were some other factors in there that like just weren't
Yeah.
go with the flow type of factors. So
Yeah.
I felt like it was a good, I think the playa was like, oh yeah, you haven't been here. So here's 8 years of like lessons and learnings for you, like
Hmm.
that's what it poured on me for, the barely 3 days that I was there. I got a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but I did bring the sunshine, so I missed all the weather. So I came
Yeah.
at the end of the
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. All
week.
right. Well, I guess we should get to our second question.
Oh,
So yeah, so where does it all begin for you? It's like, what's your background? Like, but you're
oh.
pre like Burning Man.
Yeah, I started off in finance and then yeah, started off with the finance degree, went into finance, New York City finance role.
Wow.
And
That's a tough life, right? Like,
I mean, luckily I wasn't, well, I don't know if I'm luckily, but I wasn't, on the floor, the trading floor or anything, but I was communicating with those people,
uh,
So, but it was interesting and I didn't like it. But I also got laid off during the recession and then found my way back in. And then, it was just a time for that industry. Um, and so it was kind of just in New York, figuring it out. And that's when I picked my camera back up because I was self-taught. I'd taken one class and then by the time I picked it back up, it wasn't film anymore. It was digital. And I was like, so I just wandered around the city, kind of teaching myself and, taking pictures of friends and, um, had some cool, even though I was older, internship opportunities for some really big photographer people. And that was really it. Like at some point, I was like, oh, I would love to have like a billboard in Times Square, but I really didn't have any concept of me, you know, being a full-time photographer. Um, And then it was actually that trip to the Philippines that kind of opened my eyes to storytelling and, um, travel photography, which kind of encompasses everything, portraiture, environmental, and food, and, just the story of the environment or the experience. And so that's kind of where I was like, oh, I'd love to do that. And then it was kind of just rolling from there. When I was in Maryland, when I moved to Maryland, I promised that if I had been chosen for this, you know, this event as an artist, that I would take myself seriously. And when I was, that's kind of when I started to, I had to keep my promise. So, I went
mhm.
into weddings and, slowly learned. Um,
So you ditched the
yeah,
world
and
of finance and you just went dove in
I mean, it
wholly?
ditched me is what I'd like to
Yeah.
say. Like, it just didn't like me. So, so
Wow.
that's so I was kind of thrown in, was just trying to figure it out. Um, it's been, the creative road is a hard one. So, um, but yeah, just, kept going, kept learning and then Burning Man was the thing that I think tied everything together. So if I could have found a job that did what I did at Burning Man, even though it was one,
Well, you didn't get
um,
the billboard in Times Square, but you got
no,
the
but it was definitely
30-foot
Billboard.
tall,
Yes.
sculptures at Burning Man that has
Yeah.
been on like all of their publications,
Yes. Yes. Yes, for sure. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought of that too. Um, so yeah, because it encapsulated like portraiture and storytelling and helping people and you know um, so many different creative things, travel and then who knew I would be taking actual installation work. Like that was the last thing that was on my mind when the idea came. To me, the idea was really small.
Mhm.
And that's where I always tell people like it's small. It has to start off small because if it was grand, then
But also you
like
had the adventurism to follow that, right? Because it's like it
yeah.
started with the small thing, and then the crumbs were leading this direction, but like it was you that followed those crumbs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what happened was this, as people started to reach out, the idea came and it wouldn't leave. Like it just kept like messing with me. And I finally was like, okay, like let me just give in to this this thing that's nagging me, and as things started to come into place, like I said, um, then I just, figured it out. And in my perspective, I didn't see it as bold and courageous, and I was scared and I didn't know what I was doing. And I, most of the time felt like I looked like I didn't know what I was doing, where other people, you know, say something completely different than what my experience was in it.
Yeah, but you didn't
Um,
say no. You didn't stop and be like, "Well,
no, I
hold me
didn't
off the
say no.
ground."
I didn't say no
Yeah.
for sure. But I didn't know when I didn't say no how bold and courageous and that was,
Mhm.
So at the time. So yeah, that's kind of the quickie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of naturally guess that's the last question. The impact and influence of Burning Man on your life. I mean, kind of already start talking about that.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think it's been super expansive in all the ways, and I think um just the people that I know today, from that community and from people who, reached out and support and people who I have access to call is pretty mind-blowing, and um yeah, I don't know if I always think about it, but it's been really I don't know, expansive is all the word I can say. And I've grown in so many ways. And like I said, when I was going there, I know why my friend felt like I needed to go because she saw those things in me. I'm pretty sure that I was too scared you know, to do myself. And which is why I never start this story without mentioning her, even if I don't say her name. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I had to say yes, but it only happened because she saw something and she offered such a kind gift.
Mhm.
And um I feel like she probably knew I wouldn't say no. Like I usually took on a challenge, but also, what a gift for someone to give and to kind of see all of that you know, um and so I think it just allowed me to see how bold I was and how much saying yes to things have ripple effects, especially the really scary things. And then also how, small something might be that's really meant to be big, and you might not have an idea at all. And then sometimes I'm like, you don't have the idea because it might scare you triple times that amount if the big vision was already there. So like it takes you through the process to get you where actually the bigger part was meant to be.
Yeah.
And so to me, going out there to take photos seems so small. So when the impact was so grand, and having the evidence of people reaching out to me, telling me what that impact was to them, like that was really unexpected, even though that's what I wanted for people. I wanted it to be this thing that kind of eliminated or made smaller the barrier of entry to Burning Man for people who didn't feel included. And then to also just get real perspective of what burners were experiencing out there in general. They just happened to be from people of color, but you know, there weren't that many real stories out there in a way that was done with powerful visuals and also Black people. So
Actually, one thing that's been I wanted to ask you about was that you said you'd be doing interviews because so it's not just the photographs. So do you
Mhm.
so does the, do you have like a do you do like
The
audio
podcast.
interview or a podcast or like a
So
written or
yeah, so both. So when I first started, I was just doing like recording phone interviews so that I could use um, quotes and parts of their story when I posted their imagery, because I always felt like that was, hearing the human story from the human was like the most relatable. And so I would do that, and I would also pull quotes when I did any like photo exhibitions. Um, and then during 2020, when we weren't having anything, I was like, well, let me start to do IG Live. So I started to do them weekly IG Live interviews that I called Stories from the Dust. And that lasted probably up until I started, maybe even through some of 2022, and stopped when I needed to recover. uh, so, so yeah, so I've definitely done a few hundred interviews at this point,
oh,
of
wow, that's incredible.
people. Hmm.
So where does the Black Burner project go from here, or what plans do you have now?
Oh, I'm still figuring it out. I think it's a cool inflection and turning point. So I probably won't do another art piece out there, and it probably will exist in a different capacity so that I can focus on things that are be sustaining for myself, um, and work on me. But I'm still figuring out what, Black Burner Project looks like. And
Hmm.
so, I'm taking it's not as easy. I've been so tied to it, and it's been such a passion project, and I've given so much of myself to it. Um, but I think I've got it to I've brought it to a place that is far beyond what I intended it for, and I'm really happy with what I was able to accomplish and all the other people who jumped in to be a part of the journey and to be able to make it even bigger.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's to be determined. I'm sure there'll be like a book or maybe a film or something out at some point. Um, so at the very least, a book.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, also it seems
but
you must have like inspired other people. They've come out there and they see what you're doing, and it's just like, you know what, I've got a vision. And it's like,
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I think that was a part of it. It's like, see, not only being a woman of color and then having a predominantly diverse team, I brought on people who I was like, I'm not a fabricator. I'll get my, like, you can teach me anything.
mm,
Also, what I bring is connections. And so, like, the people that I have access to because of what I was able to build prior to this, you now have access to. And so, people from my team have now went on to create their own works and doing all of that. And the people who helped me raise money, helping them raise money, the people who helped me build, like, all these things that, you know, I wanted. That was what I hoped for. And that the access to people and things are stand in the way, or the lack of so
mhm,
many people. Yeah, and then the art piece itself, not only were they bold portraits of people of color, I was hopeful, and they were like a beacon for people, that it was encouraging for others to like bring something to life,
mhm.
Um, so people have reached out and, given behind
Yeah.
it, but also
Well, that must just be so, like
encourage.
so rewarding. Yeah. I mean, just to see like people that you've worked with or people that you've inspired to go on. It's like, oh yeah, and then this person's done this and this person's done that. And it's like it's
Mhm.
not just a flash in the pan. It's like, well, we did this thing and that was cool and that was that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also really cool to, like, a few people from my team who've now brought pieces and are now in a totally different space. Like, they hadn't been to Burning Man in a while. And I was lucky enough to have an interesting enough project that they felt like it was the time for them to come back. And, so much has shifted from them saying yes to it. They didn't have to say yes. They didn't have to believe in it, like, um but they did, and to now see where their journey, because of that, because of their yes, has been really cool too, and now the the increase in people of color led projects has been awesome to see. So yeah, it's been really humbling and, you know magical, and
Yeah.
been really cool
Do
to
you think you might try out some of the regional events or maybe international
know.
events?
No.
You want to bring your
No.
30-foot sculptures to like
I mean, like, I'm a
Spain?
burner, but I'm not like, yeah, I'm just like, these past 8 years took a lot out of me, and that's all I got.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they also have to have like a healthy, like, work and burn balance, or life and burn. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what I've noticed. Like with for me taking 13 years off to raise my son, it's like life intrudes. I mean, there's more to life than going
Right.
into the desert.
Yeah. So now that's where I'm at, that part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a
So,
journey. It's like,
yeah.
well, writing the book as we're reading it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, all
Yeah.
right. Well, I think we're about almost an hour and 15. Um, Anything else? Anything you want to plug? Any website or anything or
You
What
can
is it
always
like?
look
Is it
at Black Burner Project on Instagram or Facebook. Uh, haven't been as active on it lately, but you can still find all of the videos, the interviews, and the portraits there, and the Facebook page, and my personal creative and photography website is Erin, Erin dash Shaw, which is S as in Sam, H as in Henry, A.com. So Erin dash Shaw dot com.
all right?
And yeah, so you can find you can find Burning Man stuff there, but you can find all my other works
So if
and
anyone wants
other
to
things that I do.
contact you, they can look there and go
Yeah.
from there. And like, oh, awesome.
And my personal page, Instagram page is a photo chick. So I can be easily contacted through that one or Black Burner Project Instagram page.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing interview.
Thank you. Thanks for interviewing me. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me go back to memory lane. That was fun.
That was my pleasure. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe, rate, and review it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. The more reviews the show has, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Also, please tell a friend and share this show with anyone that you think might like it. Word of mouth reaches quite far, especially in the Burning Man community. If you would like to contact us, please send an email to shadowofthemanpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow Shadow of the Man on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, and YouTube. The links for all of these are available at shadowoftheman.com. Feel free to use any of these social media accounts to provide any feedback you might have. Your thoughts on the show are greatly appreciated. Thank you, and see you soon for a new episode of The Shadow of the Man.
Thank you for listening to this latest show. We have to make another one, so gotta go. Don't worry, for next month we already have one in the can. Very soon you'll be listening to a new Shadow of the Man.